Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be looking at the 2021 redistricting process in the state of New Mexico. So, New Mexico is a state that has Democratic control in that they have a Democratic governor who would be signing the hypothetical map, and they have a Democratic-controlled state legislature. So the Democrats are essentially free to do whatever they want in the state, assuming it is legal and follows the Voting Rights Act guidelines. So, we're going to get right into it with this video. Taking a look at our first map, if it loads, a really ugly Democratic gerrymander that could be passed that is VRA compliant. So the only issue in New Mexico, I think, is that you have to have either 2 majority Hispanic districts or you need to have at least 1 majority Hispanic district, I believe, or 2 majority minority districts. So I did 2 majority minority districts, but there are some super easy ways to make 3 majority minority districts, and this seat right here, the 2nd district, is really close to being majority minority, and all the seats have really good Hispanic representation anyways. So the map is, I believe, legal. But if it isn't legal, I can easily touch it up and make it legal in like 10 minutes. So yeah. The other thing you have to be wary of are Native American reservations that cannot be separated. So these reservations I like to keep together. They're kind of communities of interest. Then there are 2 native reservations that are close to each other but don't need to be kept together. So there's this reservation here that's part of Bernalillo County, as you can see over here. And then you have this reservation over here in Cibola County. Then you have some over here that are all in this district. Then you have this Otero County native reservation that I kept in this district. So they were not separated. The closest call is right here, but these are 2 native reservations that just happen to be right next to each other. So this is a map that the Democrats could pass. And, realistically speaking, the Democrats have some pretty good options in New Mexico because they're 2 incumbents, Melanie Stansbury and Teresa Lugar Fernandez, are both pretty strong incumbents. They both are actually, I'll pull it up. They did quite well in 2020. So Teresa Lugar Fernandez, she won her race by 17.4%, and that's pretty good. Her district, according to the Cook Partisan Voting Index, is D+9, meaning that in a neutral environment, it would vote 9 points to the left of that environment. So, or I guess, if we had a D+3 year, it would be D+12. You know what I'm trying to say. And we saw a D+4.4 year in 2020, and it was a 17. It should have been, I guess, a 13 to 14 point Democratic district. She overperformed the PVI. She won by 3 points more than she should have won by, according to Cook. Now, Cook isn't perfect with PVI. I don't really like it that much, but take that as, I guess, as you will. I don't personally really care, but just worth noting that she did overperform, I guess, Cook's expectation. Now, the other district in New Mexico represented by a Democrat is Deb Haaland's former district. She won by 16 against Michelle Garcia Holmes. Garcia Holmes was a pretty good candidate, and she won. She ran a little bit behind Biden, though. Biden won the district by 23. She won by 16. And this district is a D+7 seat, according to Cook PVI, so she still overperformed. She should have won it by 11. She won by 16. Biden won by 23. So this seat is trending towards the Democrats, mostly because of the Albuquerque area and its suburbs. The district looks pretty big, I guess, but like 80% of the voters come from this area, and they're shifting to the left. Now, we recently saw a special election on June 1st between her and Mark Morez. Morez. I'm not sure. I think it's Morez. But Morez was expected to make this race decently close, and he lost by 25%. So it was a really disappointing result for Republicans. They did not do too well in this seat, and I do think that this really shows that, the Democrats, in special elections, they can overperform. They're not always going to. They're going to have some bad performances, but this was an election that they overperformed in. Now, the Republican seat was actually a Republican pickup where Yvette Herrell defeated Xochitl Torres Small. So Torres Small won in a blue wave 2018. She won by, I think, a point or so. And it was a seat that was being vacated by incumbent Republican Steve Pierce. So Pierce was a pretty popular incumbent. He ran for governor. He lost to Michelle Lujan Grisham. And then Xochitl Torres Small ran for the seat, and she won. Then in 2020, as expected, I had her losing by, I think, 4%. She ended up losing by a little more. She lost by, I think, 7%. And Yvette Herrell picked up her seat. And, Xochitl Torres Small still ran ahead of Joe Biden. I think she ran 2 or 3 points ahead of Joe Biden. So she didn't have a bad performance. She was in a Republican district. This is a seat that, according to the Cook PVI, should have been or it was R plus 8, so in a D plus 4 for environment, it was supposed to be R plus 4, so she did run a little bit behind the environment, but again, we tend to see that happening with Cook PVI, making races a little more competitive than they should be, but overall, solid performance for Xochitl Torres Small. That being said, I do not think that her race was really, I don't think that she was going to win. I think most people had her losing. There is a group of Xochitl Torres Small stands on Twitter, but I think other than that, I think most people had her losing this race. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that, she's a strong incumbent. Like, if she ran in a seat that was anywhere from, I think, R plus 3 in a, R plus 3, anything more Democratic than R plus 3, I think that she'd be favored in immediately. Because she did do well with Hispanics. She ran ahead of Biden with Hispanics. She did decently well with the oil industry. And she would have done a lot better had it not been for Trump being on the ballot. Because he did very well with Hispanics. For a Republican, he did very well with the oil industry. So, this is a Democratic gerrymander that they can make. It's not likely to happen, though, because it is a pretty ugly map, and because it would certainly cause some legal problems. Now, taking a look at this really bad Republican gerrymander, there are quite a few on Twitter. I can show you guys. Some people replied to my tweet. So, essentially, this is a map that I've used. I kind of cheated. I used a 2012 to 2016 composite data, and I basically just packed the Democrats into one district that went from Albuquerque in the suburbs that are pretty blue up to Santa Fe. So the seat, as you can see here, I'm going to fix that, but the seat is, 60 to 30 essentially, and there's a weird amount of third-party votes in this data set because 2012 to 2016, because there's such a weird amount of third-party votes in 2016, so it's not completely accurate. And in 2016 or in the 2012-2018 composite data set, I think this seat is tilty and this seat is still leaning Republican, so not a great map, but I have some better maps to show you. And so Smark on Twitter sent me this map. This is a pretty good gerrymander of New Mexico for the Republicans. It's 2012-2016, so he did, it's not perfect, but it's still a really, really ugly-looking map. It's obviously, I don't believe that it's legal, because as you can see, 3 districts are majority and minority, but none of them are majority Hispanic. And also, when you look at the demographics, native voters, I think that this map does split a lot of native reservations. So not a legal map, but certainly an interesting one at that. So you can see, takes Albuquerque, grabs Santa Fe, and then goes up to these native reservations up here that are obviously very Democratic. A couple other maps. So All Things Elections sent this map in, and All Things Elections, I think this is a 2012 to 2018 map, I'm assuming. Here's another one that they made. So obviously, 2 very ugly-looking maps that, again, not going to happen because there's a Democratic governor. Wizard of Gargalon says this is the map that he made, showing that you essentially, similar thing, Santa Fe and Albuquerque packed into one seat to make a 2-to-1 map in favor of the GOP. So, you can make a couple 2-to-1 maps using certain data sets. It is possible to make one using 2012 to 2018. Unfortunately, I'm not good enough at gerrymandering to make that. I came really close. I just decided to go 2012-2016 because I thought it would be easier for me. But it is possible, and I will say that. So I encourage you to make a map, New Mexico, 2-to-1, using 2012-2018. Tag me on Twitter, or retweet it if you can do it. Now, this is our fair map of New Mexico. So all this map essentially does is it kind of it keeps Native American reservations together pretty nicely. Obviously, you have this reservation in this district, but most of them are in I guess I'll label it instead of referring to them as individual districts. So the first district has most of the Native American reservations, as you can see. The second has the ones that are in Bernalillo County, and it basically follows Bernalillo County borders. It's basically all Bernalillo County plus a little bit of Valencia County. And then you have one in Otero County. So, as you can see, this map essentially, you can make a really ugly map with like an R plus 20 district. It's possible. I've done it before. I don't have the map. I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it in all my maps. But it is possible, and you can make a super ugly map. But I tried to make the map as compact as possible, obviously following the VRA with keeping Native American reservations together, and I also didn't want the map to look atrocious because I like my maps to look good when I'm trying to make a fair maps, because otherwise they just look it's just kind of cringe. Now, the third district, and using this data set, the third district, we can look at 2016 presidential data. I think it would have been Trump plus 10 if I recall correctly. Yeah, he would have won it by actually 13. It looks like. And the third district would have been Clinton plus 17, and Clinton plus 16. So, pretty safe districts on either side. The third, of course, most competitive. So I guess in a way the Democrats could flip it. If Xochitl Torres Small ran, I think that she could win it. 2018, I think Michelle Lujan Grisham would have narrowly carried it. Oh no, she would not have. She would have narrowly lost it, actually, which is interesting. She would have lost by 9. Well, I thought she would have carried it for some reason, but so it would have been an R+9 seat in 2018, which is actually really good for the Republicans. It's actually more solid than I thought, because they made this map a while ago. I haven't looked at it since, but yeah. Now in the Attorney General race, that was kind of a fluke race. The Democrats did really well there. Narrowly they would have won it by 4. And then the Attorney General race, I think it would have been blue in the Senate race, because Gary Johnson took a lot of votes away from the GOP in this race. You can see here, I think it would have been pretty blue. Yeah, it would have been blue by about 2%. So yeah. And they don't have 2020 presidential data, but I think it would have been red. In this data set, yeah, it would have been R+11 pretty much, or 12 actually, in this data set. So, pretty Republican district. According to the composite data set, I think it's like R+8. Yeah, it's R+7, so I was close. Again, I made this map a while ago. I'm just trying to recall when I looked at the stats earlier, but you essentially had 2 state Democratic districts, one like the Republican district. It's a pretty clean-looking map. I think it's pretty good. Obviously follows the VRA. Yeah, because all of these districts are actually majority-minority. So, yeah. Now, the final map is another map that the Democrats could make that I talked about on Twitter. So, essentially what they could do is if they want to be really safe, they can make a toss-up district while having 2 safe seats for themselves. So, statistically, as you can see here, all districts are majority-minority. There is only a 0.3 population deviation, so it follows the VRA. Keeps Native American reservations together, I believe. If not, that would be embarrassing on my part, because this map was meant to be as realistic as possible. Yeah, it does. Oh, wait, no, it does not. Oops, I gotta fix one thing, guys. Hold on. Let's fix this so you get to see some live action. I need to can I move this thing? No, I cannot. That's very annoying. I can't override the lock on this 3rd district. That's very annoying. Hold on. Okay, whatever, so I just had to do it off recording, which is annoying because I have to download the recording twice, but whatever, people have much worse problems in life than me. So, anyways, you have these 2 safe seats for the Democratic Party. As you can see, this first, the 2nd district, which is the first Democratic district, would be D plus 21. 2nd district would be D plus 24. I think I'm using the 22. Yeah, I am. Then this seat would be prime time for Xochitl Torres Small to run and win in a narrow Republican seat. So this seat is majority-minority, 48% Hispanic, the 2.5% Native American, 2.4% Black, and it's just R+1. So it's a very competitive seat, and Xochitl Torres Small would get to run and essentially, using this data set, I guess, basically an R+8 seat to an R+1 seat. And I think that she'd win probably by 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7, depending on the wave. But I think she'd be favored to win if she did run in this hypothetical seat. And, if the New Mexico Democrats want to draw a clean-looking map that's not obviously gerrymandered, that is, that, I guess, protects their incumbents while making sure that Xochitl Torres Small, whoever the Democrats run, could potentially gain a seat. I think this would be the map. And posted this map on Twitter a while ago. Someone said it's the most likely scenario. I think that the Democrats are going to go kind of for a hybrid. They're going to go pretty aggressive. I think they're going to make this seat a little bluer. I think they're going to have 2 safer seats and then make this seat maybe D plus 3 or 4 instead of R+1. But that's just me. So I guess I'll say this is my prediction, but I think it's going to be a little more generous towards Democrats. But we can look through the data sets. I think Clinton would have definitely lost this in 2016 for sure. She would have lost it by, it looks like, 7%. Although it would have been blue in the governor's race, I bet. Oh no, would not have, interestingly enough. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's see. AG definitely would have been blue. Yeah, it was blue in AG. Taking a look, Senator race definitely blue there. And then composite 2016 definitely blue, or definitely red. Excuse me. So yeah. So overall, pretty Republican leading seat. But Xochitl Torres Small, I think a strong Democrat could win it. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.